Well, it is a pleasure to be here today, and it's great to follow Mark. I think AI and nuclear are actually very well intertwined, and there's a lot that can be done using both technologies to advance the maritime. I'm going to start at the start and talk a little bit about what AI actually is. To cut through the hype, today AI is an umbrella term covering a range of computer algorithms that help find patterns in data and help us to work out so what. These algorithms are built on philosophy and mathematical theories dating back to the 1600s and are largely computerized implementations of probability and statistics theory. There's no single algorithm or technology that is the definitive AI. Instead, there are different algorithms that help solve various tasks, and then they can be combined to help solve more complex problems. These algorithms are used to process large volumes of data to create models that help represent the patterns in data through a process known as training. These models help us derive real-world insights from the data, such as to quantify emissions or identify fishing. They can also help us forecast the future based on knowledge of the past, for example, weather or sea state forecasting. Over time, algorithms have improved, being able to represent more real-world insights, but also the quantity of data that the models are trained on has increased, resulting in more capable predictions. The current generative AI that we've all heard about is essentially one branch of algorithm that has been trained using much of the internet as data, resulting in an ability to represent a large part of human knowledge. They're generative because, given an initial prompt, they can use all of this knowledge to guess what parts of its knowledge base need to be combined to come up with an answer. Often, answers are good because the knowledge base is so vast. But even though they can produce some amazing results, they don't understand real-world concepts. So they don't understand physics or emotions. And so if you ask something that doesn't fit the knowledge base well, then you can get utterly bonkers answers, or worse, wrong answers that sound right. And so this is why, after all the hype around magical results, many businesses are now looking for practical applications. However, if you are looking to create new business value from your data, AI is a very powerful tool indeed in the right hands. You need to know which algorithms will suit the data you have and what results you can expect. In short, you need experts. So for some examples, at OceanMind, we use AI extensively to understand human activity on the ocean and to estimate the impact on ocean health. OceanMind is a non-profit organisation using AI to analyse planetary scale data to power marine enforcement and compliance. So we help regulators enforce more effectively, but we also help the industry act more responsibly. Our algorithms analyse trillions of vessel tracking data points to identify the types of human activity on the ocean, cross-reference with satellite data such as satellite radar or optical imagery or infrared data or vessel registry databases, licenses, authorizations, and the rules and regulations on the ocean to help find and highlight risky activities. In the example shown here, our algorithms have decoded the movements of long-line fishing vessels in the Indian Ocean to a very high degree of accuracy, using these combined algorithm approaches. In the diagram, you can see the GPS positions of each vessel track colour-coded by activity. Yellow is where the lines are being set, and in this case the lines are about 100 kilometres long. The grey is where the lines are being retrieved, and the light blue and magenta are where vessels transfer into a new fishing ground. Dark blue is where the vessels were engaging in transshipment at sea, and you could see that the vessels were coordinating their actions to stop their lines being entangled, which indicated they were part of the same fleet. So our team of intelligence analysts investigate all of this computerized information to support regulators taking effective action against non-compliance, so to help, in this case, find illegal fishing. And we also help the industry take more responsible choices. So we help the seafood buyers and the supply chain understand where fish is being sourced and whether it was caught in compliance with the law. Our algorithms are actually more than 10 separate processes combined in various ways to provide outputs that are sufficient for law enforcement that assess suspected non-compliance. Obviously, for law enforcement, you need to achieve a higher bar of understanding than for science or for advocacy. And then the fishing activity that's produced is passed from one AI system into another, which is then used to apply the rules and regulations, and alerts are created where suspected illegal fishing is found. Climate Trace uses AI in a very different way. Climate Trace is a coalition of organisations, together with former US Vice President Al Gore, who have the ambition to document every human-caused greenhouse gas emissions source on the planet, either through direct observations or satellite data and modelling, but not through self-reporting. It is currently the most comprehensive database of emissions across all sectors, with over 352 million assets, each with 7 years of historical emissions in every country around the world. OceanMind is a founding member of Climate Trace, and we estimate the emissions from the maritime sector and from coal, oil and gas that move around the ocean. Climate Trace uses satellite imagery and AI to estimate emissions from global industry, using a range of algorithms to increase the efficiency. In this example, optical and infrared satellite imagery is used to build models of what is a representative steel plant to see what it looks like from space at different intensities of production. They will process optical images to detect the smoke coming from the chimneys to show the plant is active, and the amount of smoke is proportional to the emissions being produced. They'll then analyse spreadsheet data to learn when certain plants are most active and combine the two data sources to build a model of what the site looks like when it's operating at these intensities. They will then overlay thermal infrared data to see how hot the site is, and again, use the data sheets to determine what heat signatures relate to different intensities. Then, these separate results are combined to produce a more accurate emissions estimate. By using the different data sources and different algorithms and combining the results, they can then achieve higher levels of accuracy. These models are then applied to similar facilities around the world so that you can estimate emissions even from sites where there are no reported data. So the emissions data for all 352 million assets is available freely and open from climatetrace.org, and anyone can discover the highest emitting sources within their supply chains and identify alternative lower emitting suppliers and immediately reduce Scope 3 emissions. So it is now an AI-powered tool that is the simplest and fastest way to understand emissions in the supply chain. And so using third-party tools is the fastest way to adopt AI in your organisations. So of course, AI in its various forms is already ubiquitous across the maritime sector, and many of the use cases overlap with other sectors. AI is already used to identify the most advantageous and least environmentally impacting sites for offshore wind, using satellite data, ecosystem data, weather data, vessel movements, fishing data, etc. It's all analysed, established baseline scenarios, and build models of the current state of sites. These models are then tuned based on scenarios for infrastructure placements and changing from the baseline as predicted, and then AI can process thousands of those scenarios and permutations to identify the least impacting, most advantageous overall locations and recommend phasing and monitoring of implementation. Once renewable energy is generated, AI manages the distribution of electricity in real time, balancing supply and demand efficiently, not just by reacting to current conditions, but using historical data to train models to predict demand changes and adjust production in advance. It helps integrate renewable energy sources into the grid by predicting fluctuations in power generation, due to weather conditions or forecasting when traditional energy sources need to increase their capacity to account for the reductions in renewables. AI algorithms also adjust the positioning of the wind turbines or the solar panels in real time to maximise energy capture. And they also predict future energy consumption patterns based on historical data, weather and usage trends to enable better long-term planning as well. So by making all of these adjustments in advance rather than reactively, you can avoid breakdowns and you can make sure that services continue. And then AI systems are also used to optimise heating and cooling and lighting in buildings, reducing energy waste, lowering carbon footprints. As a concrete example of that, Google uses AI to reduce the energy systems, cooling systems energy uses in the data centres, and it can reduce that energy usage by up to 40% by ensuring just-in-time cooling rather than always on. And of course, the national grid avoids brownouts during peak times, like football matches, by predicting and smoothing energy demands using AI. AI is also helping to optimise maritime logistics. AI analyses real-time data such as weather conditions, ocean currents, and traffic congestion to determine the most efficient shipping routes, reducing fuel consumption and transit times. AI can also help optimise inventory levels on ships by predicting demand and ensuring that the right amount of cargo is being carried, reducing waste overall and increasing profitability. AI can also help maximise pricing for commodities, determining mid-voyage whether an alternative destination would yield a higher value return, and providing operators with insights to make just-in-time decisions to take advantage of market changes. AI is being used to streamline port operations for large ports by predicting vessel arrival times, optimising berth allocation, managing cargo handling, and leading to faster turnaround times and reduced port congestion. This not only helps reduce costs, but also reduces emissions and associated pollution. Port optimisation is actually a quick win for decarbonisation because there's a lot of wasted energy and wasted fuel use moving around and waiting outside of ports. AI-enabled systems can also adjust ship speed and engine settings and other operational parameters to minimise fuel consumption and emissions during the voyage based on the prevailing conditions and forecasts along the route. This is another quick win for decarbonisation and is fairly extensively used at the moment. AI also monitors and reports emissions in real time to ensure compliance with environmental regulations, such as for the EU border tax on carbon, or helping the supply chain reduce their combined environmental and carbon footprints. AI also has a role to play in maritime safety. AI can be used to analyse thousands of vessel sensor inputs, and they can help captains make real-time decisions to avoid obstacles, adjust routes, and improve overall safety and efficiency. AI also can be used to analyse the sensor data for anomalies to predict when ship machinery is likely to fail, allowing for maintenance to be scheduled proactively, as well as improving safety. This can significantly reduce costs if a complete breakdown can be avoided. And of course, AI is being used to develop autonomous and semi-autonomous ships. In this case, not only is AI analysing the sensors on board the vessel, that data is being augmented with wider environmental and weather data, satellite data, and an increasing range of other sources. While fully autonomous ships, like fully autonomous cars, is somewhat in the future, semi-autonomous ships and cars are in use today. In use today, and they bring detailed insights before the pilot to enable better and faster decision making. AI systems are also in use to optimise search and rescue operations by analysing weather conditions, sea currents, satellite imagery, radar, looking at the distress signal data. They can determine the most effective search patterns for that particular emergency. By using computers to do the complicated mathematics across the various data sources, rescuers can focus on bringing their experience and optimizing their limited resources in any response. And AI is used in advanced training simulators that replicate real-world maritime scenarios and help crew members and their supporting teams practice and improve their responses to situations. And of course, as we've heard, and we saw with OceanMind's work, AI can contribute to a lot more effective and efficient regulation. They can allow regulators to move further and faster with regulations, and for the regulated industry to improve compliance. AI systems already analyse data from vessels in real time to ensure compliance with various international maritime regulations, such as MARPOL or IMO 2020 and the sulfur cap. AI can automatically detect non-compliance, such as excessive emissions or illegal discharges. And they can alert authorities, or indeed can automatically submit evidence of compliance on a regular basis. AI can also streamline the processing of regulatory documentation, such as ship certifications, by automatically checking for accuracy and compliance across regulatory standards. It's used to cross-reference documentation and make sure that there is more comprehensive compliance. And of course, AI models can also be used to predict potential risks related to maritime operations, such as the likelihood of accidents or environmental hazards. They can allow regulators to recommend preventative measures and tailor regulations to emerging risks. Across the maritime sector, AI can be used as a decision support tool, surfacing pertinent information at the right time. And AI tools can be used to simulate the impact of new regulations on the maritime industry. It can be used to help policymakers understand the potential outcomes and refine their regulations to achieve the desired results. By simulating multiple outcomes resulting from regulatory changes, like processing all the scenarios, they can ensure the most optimal approach. So, building on all of those existing use cases, we can see that AI is going to be an important tool to support decarbonisation. There are obvious use cases, like AI can analyse weather patterns and ocean currents and traffic conditions in real time to determine the most fuel-efficient routes for vessels. It can adjust ship speed to optimise fuel efficiency. It can do balance time and fuel costs while minimising emissions. You can reduce fuel consumption and then consequently greenhouse gas emissions by running the scenarios and understanding what is the best approach to take from here to there. AI-driven predictive maintenance can identify potential mechanical failures before they happen. It also reduces fuel consumption due to inefficiencies in ship operations, but it also prolongs the life of equipment. Properly maintained systems and hulls has been shown to increase efficiency by over 20%, and AI can ensure that interventions are just in time to ensure the best trade-off between cost and efficiency. And of course, much of the carbon cost of the maritime sector is embedded in the equipment, in the ships themselves, and so to maximise the use of those helps reduce the overall emissions. Similarly, as AI systems can continuously monitor a ship's emissions, you can use that then to ensure compliance with the international regulations. That means that early detection of things like increasing particulates can prompt maintenance and avoid costly fines, as well as reduce the impacts on human health. Being able to real-time adjust these processes, particularly when near land, is an important action to take, not just to decarbonise from a net zero perspective, but to reduce the amount of impact on human health, respiratory diseases and so forth, on people near to those shipping routes. And AI is, as I said, helping regulators assess the impact and value of new technologies against the goal of decarbonisation. So they can help the regulators actually adapt regulations to embrace new technologies that show significant promise at increased pace. By running the scenarios, they can understand what they might not have seen or what might be coming, that they can then decide, we want to go in this direction actually rather than end up over there. And so AI can very quickly can help them choose a better approach. Most interesting, though, is how AI is being used to simulate new materials and new fuel development. So this increases the speed and cost of research and development. New materials are critical for hull coatings or ship construction, new wind-powered technologies and so forth. By using AI to simulate the thousands of scenarios, we can explore millions of material properties. We can analyse the performance of new fuels at scale, and we can include the generation of fuels in models, and then, as well as the distribution and use of that fuel, we can then see what would have happened over simulated numbers of years, so that we can look forward and see, we pick this fuel, what is the future impact, not just on the industry, but on the environment. AI optimizes those scenarios. So it will run them, and then from that one it will pick a variable that it finds promising, and that one from a variable it finds promising. So it can then invent new scenarios, ones that you didn't conceive of in the first place, that is the optimization between all of these novel approaches. This use of AI is already prevalent in the pharmaceutical industry, and it's emerging through materials science. It allows resources to be focused on experimenting with the most promising solutions, potentially shaving years off the development life cycle and creating valuable new IP with various new use cases across industries. So by finding solutions that can be more broadly applied, we can multiply the profits that come from the R&D and then impact at the same time. So speaking of multiplying profits, this is probably the most important application of AI in driving the industry forwards. AI is already powering organisations to reduce costs, cut carbon, grow revenues in many of the ways we've discussed. And by using AI to create new revenue streams and reduce cost in existing operations, we're increasing overall profits, but we're also offsetting some of the costs, the significant costs needed as investment into the future of the maritime sector. So by developing new revenue streams, we're bolstering the case for new investment financing, for example. By diversifying income, risks can be reduced, and that potentially reduces the corporate insurance premiums. So the use of AI in creating new opportunities broadens the pie within which we can then operate, and that helps us take action faster. In fact, organisations that are not leaning into integrating AI into their operations, either through third-party software or through internal investments, will rapidly fall behind, as the largest gains will go to the first movers. But at the moment, the opportunity offered by AI in increasing an organisation's profits is limited by the organisational boundaries. The next bit is in collaboration. When data is limited to specific silos, the models and predictions that are possible are artificially limited. We do not adequately represent the real world. By sharing and connecting data across silos, we can train models that can do much deeper real-world applicable insights. These kinds of models are not artificially limited, and they're often called digital twins. While not a true representation of reality, as models are always an abstraction, they can provide a much closer representation by analysing interconnected data sets representing different but related systems. By opening up data sharing under appropriately controlled conditions, we can start to optimise systems of systems. We can increase efficiencies from end to end. An example of this is the obvious one, is integrating sea, air, road and rail logistics, which would include port optimization across all the modalities, ensuring goods arriving can immediately move in and through and out, and react to unexpected conditions and then re-optimize the system in real time. This means that goods can flow across boundaries in the most efficient manner, reducing wait times, reducing the idling fuel usage or the storage costs, and then ensuring optimal usage of the capacity available. Scenario planning on a much grander scale can identify new efficiencies. Cross-industry innovation can result in the creation of new solutions and revenue streams serving intelligence-related or integrated logistics. Which brings us full circle. AI is not one algorithm, but a combination of the right algorithms to find the conditions that will lead to the best probability of a desired outcome being achieved. AI is already being used to all of these and more ends, but to take advantage of the big opportunity AI represents, experts across disciplines need to be brought together to collaborate on the next level systems. We need to work together in a more closely connected ecosystem. So, thank you. Any questions?
Keeping the theme of elephants, as Mark started, regulation. We talked about how AI can support regulation, but does AI need regulating itself?
So, AI is not a thing, and so regulating AI is a very complex question. There are some things that are going on at the moment that need regulating. So they are the development of new techniques and the aspiration towards what's called artificial general intelligence, to try and create AI that is human-like. That has all sorts of risks associated with it, definitely needs regulation, potentially has the same sort of impacts on society as doing the wrong thing with nuclear. So definitely there are areas of AI that need regulating. But the vast majority of things that we can do today are actually maths. And so the use of maths to learn and understand more across very big data sets is really where the opportunity lies for us today.
And one more. We've seen AI, and the rate of growth of AI has been phenomenal over the past months even, I mean, not even years. But with that comes an increased energy use that's been publicised in the press, and especially that of Google, for example. Do you see this as being an issue, considering the fact that we were here talking about decarbonisation and saving the planet? Is AI causing another problem there?
Partially while the grid is not decarbonised. So obviously with a decarbonised grid, then the energy that's being used by these things will already be renewable. But the other thing is that the large jump in energy usage is currently down to things like generative AI, where we are trying to process the internet in order to create insights. That's one pattern of activity, and it's going to, like many of the things that have come before, it's peaked and then it will come down until we find the practical applications, and then it will move forwards again, probably in a much more efficient way. For a lot of the other things that we're talking about, we're not looking at needing that scale of infrastructure and investment in energy usage. We can do a lot of this processing on things that already exist.
Questions? Yep, Julia, go for it.
Hi there. I'm just interested to know what you think is the best next step an organisation like a ports authority or a port terminal operator could take in terms of integrating AI into their systems and approach.
So I would say many of the large ones will already be doing so, and so they'll have a plan. The easiest and fastest way to do integration is to start to engage with the companies that are using AI to create applications that then ports can use themselves for part of that. So I think initially it's find the experts who already have made a start and then broaden out their access to data and capabilities under the right enclosed conditions, of course, so that you can then accelerate that ambition. Probably, first of all, saying that, create yourself a vision and an ambition statement that is how you see the port of the future, your port of the future, and how AI can support that.
Any more questions? Yeah, go for it, Andy.
Yeah, hi. As we develop more and more solutions with AI to pretty much everything that we do, I'm wondering what the role of us humans is in that, because what we see with some technology, and really simple things like a GPS in your car, is as you're driving, you disengage with your environment. You have no idea where you are half the time if you're driving with a GPS. What's going to happen with all of the other roles that we perform currently, where we're overseeing actions or activities to ensure that there's safety often, when we disengage more and more from what's really happening?
So my view is that that level of disengagement is because people have been encouraged to see the things that the computer says as definitive. And as you well know, with the GPS in your car, it is not. It gets it wrong quite often. And so we still need the human experts to receive the outputs from the machine and make the educated decisions around what is the most appropriate thing to do with it. We can use the machines to look at far more data than a human can, and to boil it down into things that we can look at. But we still need humans to be looking at that information and making decisions. We must not allow AI to make decisions for us, because at the moment, particularly as we've seen with the current versions of generative AI, makes things up all the time. And it takes a human to decide whether something is appropriate to use or not.
Questions? Okay, I've got one more on my own. A few months ago, there was a report in the press that was, I think, compiled by an organisation called Transport and Environment, and it was basically, and we talked about this yesterday, about naming and shaming. And they were using data, like the data that's provided by Climate Trace, to make assumptions that that port is of a certain size and is that type of vessel visiting on the amount of emissions that they are producing. But what it doesn't take into account, and this is where I think naming and shaming is wrong, what we should be doing is flying the flag of those port authorities and those vessel owners that are actually making an effort. How can Ocean Mind support that, amplify what those organisations are doing?
So, looking at Climate Trace first, Climate Trace's ambition is to highlight the people who are doing well. And to recognise, so you see all of the methodologies online and full transparency on how it's done, and recognise that the answers are not necessarily accurate, but they give us the opportunity to look at things like trends and the sort of range of behaviours across industry. So without saying they do this much in terms of emissions, it's these sorts of people who take these actions are achieving these results. These people who are doing these potentially older actions are not achieving the same level of change. And so being able to highlight those sorts of things. It is very rare that you can take some kind of modelling using machine learning AI and use that to make definitive statements about the real world, because as I said, it's an abstraction. And so if you're then going on and saying, well, this company is this, then you do run the risk of being wrong. And I think we should be using the information that we have to hold things up. We can equally use that information to think that something's wrong that is dealing with, hence the work that we do with regulators. But it's not this data says they did something wrong, it's this data indicates there might be an issue, someone needs to investigate.
One more from me. 10 years from now, where do you think AI will take us? And maybe you can add to that, where do you think Ocean Mind will be in 10 years' time?
Yeah. I think AI is going to open up a new world of possibilities, and it's going to help us move towards decarbonisation and, well, that new world, which is using different energy sources much more quickly than we currently imagine, largely because it needs to. And so we need to have a focus on achieving that. But of course, the real answer is it takes us where we want it to take us. So if we choose to go over there and use it for things that are largely not moving us forwards, then it will do so. If we focus on actually wanting to drive change, it will move us to places we can't imagine today. And I think that's the key point. It's going to help us create and do more, and create more opportunity and more value and more income so that we can achieve those things.
One more question. How can we meet shared commitments for sustainable and environmental action across societies and within the sea?
So I think shared commitments is key, and the word in there that matters is commitment. So there's lots of shared statements, but there's not a great deal of observable shared commitment that results in wide-scale change and actually getting things done. And so that shared needs to include all the actors that need to take part in the process as well. And so if they exclude government, for example, or the key financing mechanisms, or insurance, or indeed the industry itself, then you won't have all the parts needed to move forwards. So actually it's being able to understand the system and who needs to be involved in order to drive the change, get everyone on board, and then create a shared commitment that actually includes, well, what are we going to do as part of it.
Any final questions? Okay, thanks. Nick, thank you very much. Very good. We're now